Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and it is time for the Gameweek 27 episode of the tier list. It's a double game week, so there's a lot of players to be thinking about and we need to order these players into who are the priority transfers in and which players maybe should we be avoiding. So guys, if you do enjoy this one, please do leave a like, please do subscribe if you're new around here. Without further ado, let's have a look at the tier list today. Alright guys, so as always, the 30 most popular transfers in at time of recording are going to go in this tier list. We're going to rank them all and see which ones are must-buys all the way down to avoids. And we're going to start off with the 30th most popular transfer in at this moment, which is Pascal Gross, who is going straight in the avoid category. And this one is an absolutely crazy one. I don't understand why so many people are buying him. Maybe they're just looking at the total scores for the entire season rather than kind of looking at more recently, because more recently, Pascal Gross has been playing in defensive midfield, has not been able to influence games as much as he perhaps was very early on in the season because he's just playing in a completely different position. And with the situation with March, McAllister, Mitoma, those three players, it is tough enough to pick, you know, one or two players out of those three. You just cannot add Pascal Gross to the mix as well because I don't think he's quite on those other guys' level when it comes to scoring FPL points. So, yeah, certainly going to be a void. There are much better midfielders from Brighton, and it's not even like Gross is cheaper either. He's the same price as a couple of the others, more expensive than March as well. So, yeah, no place for Pascal Gross in any of our FPL teams, I don't think. So, he's going to go in a void. Erdegaard, I guess we're going to put him in optional, good transfer, something like that. Not really sure where to put him. I think he's like an okay player to buy. Is he a priority transfer this week? I'm probably going to actually have to say no. I think there are other players that are a higher priority right now. So for that reason, I think Erdegaard has got to go in there. But it's not a bad player to buy at all, really. You know, he's got a nice fixture this game week, a fixture in game week 28, which is always helpful. No double in 29, though. So I do feel like we're actually potentially going to be removing some Arsenal players in game week 29. They've got a couple of tough fixtures after that as well. So yeah, I don't know. For now, I would say he is optional, but he's not going to be super high up the list. We've got Alisson next. I feel like he is going to be, again, maybe optional, but probably like a low tier optional. I understand why people would want to go for Alisson, given the fact that Liverpool have kept a few clean sheets recently. The difficulty is game week 28, Liverpool do blank. So if you've got another goalkeeper who can cover Alisson for that one game week, I think that's fine. Alisson, he is a goalkeeper who makes saves as well often. So maybe when Liverpool do play their tougher fixtures, because basically Liverpool have Bournemouth now, which looks good. After that, they have a blank game week, and then they have to play, what is it, Chelsea, Man City, and Arsenal all in a row. And although that might not be good for defenders necessarily, at least with Alisson, when you're playing those tougher teams, you're probably going to have to make a lot of saves as well. And we know Alisson is a very good goalkeeper who can make saves. So I'm not massively keen on Liverpool defenders in general at the moment. You know, we have seen Liverpool keep 5 clean sheets in 5, which is incredible, credit to them. But when we look at the context there, Liverpool are still conceding an insane amount of chances. It's not like, you know, this is an impenetrable defence. It's definitely not the case. And they have come up against a lot of teams that don't really have finishers in their team, maybe with the exception of Manchester United. So, you know, they've played, Everton, Wolves, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, teams that are kind of struggling for goals and struggling with goal scorers at the moment anyway. So it's kind of not surprising that Liverpool have kept clean sheets against these teams. I just wonder if it's sustainable against some of the better teams. Fair enough, they did it against Manchester United, and you can't fault that. You really can't fault that. But at the same time, is it sustainable? I don't know, because their defensive numbers are still pretty... They're not great, even considering the oppositions they've played. So, yeah, Alisson's going to go in optional. We're going to put Bruno Fernandes, I guess, in... Again, like, I feel like he is a player you want for the double game week, but he's got a good fixture in 27 against Southampton. Is this the pick? Is this the pick to go for right now? I don't know. The fact that he doesn't have a fixture in game week 28 maybe puts me off a little bit. So again, let's put him in optional. I feel like optional is going to be packed today. I'm not going to lie. We might have to move things around a little bit just to try and get some players out of optional. But let's continue moving. Brennan Johnson, is he another optional? I guess he is. I feel like the problem with him is that maybe drops him into a void is that he has got a couple of tough fixtures in a row now, playing Spurs next. So I think he's worth keeping an eye on just for that, the double game week in game week 29 in particular. Nottingham Forest actually have a decent double game week. So if you're looking to go for a cheaper forward to maybe spread your funds out, release a couple of funds to make upgrades elsewhere, I do think Johnson is worth having a look at. But as for right now, I don't think I would be going for him. So yeah, he's kind of an avoid, I guess, but definitely someone to keep an eye on. I'm not writing him off for the rest of the season. Almiron could go in a void. He can go lower than Johnson for sure. Yeah, Almiron, don't know why people are picking him. He has not been the epic FPL asset that he once was for a very long time. He's not a good FPL asset right now. No point in buying him. Ben White, I guess optional. You could go for him if you really wanted to. I think, to be honest, I'm a little bit put off by the fact that he was actually benched in game week 26. I think a lot of people look at the score and say, oh, he scored a goal, maybe he's a good pick, but I'm kind of more worried that he didn't start the game. So I think there might be a little bit of rotation for Ben White now and again. And we also know that Arsenal don't have a double game week in 29. So maybe again that drops him into a void. Is he the kind of player you'd want to be going for right this second? Possibly not. Yeah, I feel like there's other defenders from other teams that we might want to be prioritising over Ben White, so maybe we put him in a void. Let's bring in Trent Alexander-Arnold. Got a bit of attacking potential there. But there's the difficulty with Liverpool players, same with Manchester United players, is that unless you're free hitting in game week 28, and most of you guys are not going to be doing that, you're going to be stuck if you're buying players like Trent right now. You really are. He doesn't have a double game week now. He's got a great fixture against Bournemouth, but he's got Bournemouth, blank, and then 3 tough fixtures in a row. So it's like, yes, he's got a double game week in 29. Can we wait until game week 29? Would you even want him at that point because of the difficult fixtures? It's really difficult to say. Liverpool's defensive numbers are still bad, but at the same time, it's so hard for me to sit here and say, I don't want to buy a defender who has just kept 5 clean sheets in a row, because it sounds crazy when you say it like that. But if I'm honest, I mean, I'm not even remotely considering buying him this week. He could do fine against Bournemouth, don't get me wrong. But then, if he's blank in the next game week anyway, and they're playing 3 tough fixtures, I don't really want him. I feel like we can go slightly better elsewhere. So yeah, we're going to put him and Van Dijk. I guess we have to put them in optional because I'm going to get screamed at if I don't. But if I'm totally honest, I'm not thinking about these players. Harry Kane, good transfer. Maybe even a great transfer. He's got a nice home game against Nottingham Forest, who have been really bad recently. Harry Kane, obviously one of the most consistent FPL performers this season, and a genuine captain option. So I'm going to put Harry Kane in a great transfer. I think he's a good one to go for. Rico Henry, another great transfer there. Going to put him slightly ahead of Harry Kane, just because we've got a double game week this game week. We have a fixture from Henry in game week 28 as well, and then in game week 29 we've got another double game week. So away from home in particular, we have found that Brentford have been very good defensively, and Henry pushing up into a left wing back position. So all in all, I feel like Henry is actually one of the best players to buy for this game week. You can't really go wrong with him. Loads of fixtures, good defense, likely clean sheets. Everyone's a winner really. So yeah, I think he's a great transfer. Let's put him in there as our first great transfer. Well, our second great transfer, our first double game week great transfer, I suppose. Trippier, think he's a good transfer. If you've lost Trippier in recent weeks, you've sold him. We've got that Man City game week out of the way now. Now it's time to bring those Newcastle players back in. They've got a couple of decent fixtures, double in 29, no blanks. Yeah. Good idea to go for some Newcastle defenders in general, but Trippier is the king of Newcastle defenders. So if you did sell him recently, now is the time to buy him back. Zinchenko, think he's a good pick, but again, he's probably my favourite Arsenal defender. But again, like the fact that we've got no double game week, I feel like we are more likely to be moving away from these players pretty soon. So I guess the decent short-term option, but I would be looking to actually remove Zinchenko for players like Luke Shaw or someone like that in game week 29 anyway. So yeah, maybe a little bit too short-term thinking. Saka, I think, is a little bit different because he is, absolute superstar at the moment, doing so well on penalties. So yeah, still think he's a very good transfer to go for. So yeah, happy to put him there. Marcus Rashford, a little bit more difficult. If you haven't bought Rashford already, is it too late? I guess he is a captain option for this game week, isn't he, Rashford? But after game week 27, we've got blank in 28. Is it maybe just, at this point, just waiting until game week 29 before buying Rashford back? Maybe even captaining him in game week 29? Maybe. I guess what I would say is, yes, you're going to need Rashford back at some point. You can maybe just wait one more game week. If you do, it's a little bit of a risk, but if you're not going to captain Rashford anyway this week, I probably would just leave him. But if you're bringing Rashford in to captain him, I feel like I would bring him in. He's still one of the best FPL assets in the game. It's just very difficult to say he's like a must-buy or a great transfer when we literally know he's about to blank. So I think you can afford to hold off if you really want to. Let's move on to Veltman. I'm not too keen on this one. I do like Brighton defenders in general, but I would much rather go, I think, for a Purvis, a Stupinian, or a Lewis Dunk, because I feel like they're much more nailed on. And typically they have better attacking threat anyway. So Veltman, there's not really too much point in going for him, to be honest. In fact, maybe even moving to avoid, because I'd rather go for the other Brighton defenders. And even if I wasn't going for the other Brighton defenders, there would be kind of a reason for that. And that's because Brighton blank in game week 28. So they've got a double this week, which is definitely something we want to take advantage of. Something we need to kind of work out how we figure out how game week 28 works after that. Veltman would probably not be the guy, because if you're looking to buy a Brighton defender for double in 27 and double in 29, I don't have confidence that Veltman will play 4 out of 4 fixtures. I think he's more likely to get 3 out of 4 fixtures, and for 0.1 million more, you can get a Stupinian, you can get Dunk. These players are going to play all 4 games, most likely, and have a little bit more attacking threat as well, do a little bit better on those bonus points, so they're actually probably slightly preferable. So no place for Veltman in teams, really, even though he did score last game week, but look, he scored 1 goal this entire season. Let's not go too mad about that one. You know, random players score sometimes, and I think that's what happened in game week 26. Next up, Watkins. Kind of his appeal is waning a little bit after that blank, but I still do think he is a player worth thinking about. So let's put him in a good transfer. We've got fixtures all the way until, well, the big double in game week 29, so no blanks. Decent fixtures as well, you'll possibly say. Decent double game week in 29. Lots of appeal for Watkins. I still do think he's a good one to go for, so I'm going to put him in good transfer. Martinelli, maybe a good transfer. I slightly prefer him at the moment to Ødegaard, because we know that Martinelli is going to be playing in the striker position, because, I mean, maybe he isn't, but we know he's going to be getting game time. Like, Trossard being injured is possibly going to mean Martinelli is definitely going to start in game week 26. After that, I think Martinelli will be good alongside Jesus, but I think he's kind of a high upside player over the next 2 game weeks. And I feel like that's what puts him above, because if he's playing as a forward, if he's nailed on, then this is going to mean that his chances of scoring those big scores, which he kind of has been doing recently, is increased over the short period before you might sell him in game week 29. But he plays Leeds in 29, so you might even consider keeping Martinelli. But I think high upside, short-term punt, I quite like Martinelli, so let's stick him there. And Bumo, I mean, I guess he's an option. I'm not super keen. I don't think he's a Tony replacement necessarily, but I guess he's okay. His stats are okay. Like, I mean, he's super cheap. I guess he has that advantage, but yeah, I don't know. Raya, probably the best goalkeeper to go for in the entire game right now, isn't he? So let's put him somewhere. I think great transfer. You know what? I'm going to say it. Great transfer. Raya, best goalkeeper to go for in the game. Yeah. 2 fixtures in game week 27, 1 fixture in 28, and another 2 in 29. So overall, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. No blanks coming up for Brentford either, which is nice. So should we put him even higher than Henry? I feel like we could. Let's put him there. A real great transfer. I like him. Foden, avoid. Yeah, he's going to be a player who's going to cause you pain. You know for a fact that as soon as everyone brings Foden in, Pep Guardiola is going to decide, Foden, well, you've done very well for us, but it's time to put you on the bench every game for another 3 months, because that's what happened before. He is just like the most trolly player in the entirety of FPL. Has a blank game week in 28, doesn't have a double in 29 either. I don't really like Man City players at all to be bringing in at the moment. With the rotation on top of that, it's just going to be an absolute nightmare at the moment. So Foden, I'm going to say he's an avoid. We're going to drop him down even further. Do we put him right at the bottom? I don't think so, but yeah, still going to put him pretty low there. March, is he a must-buy? I'm not sure. He's certainly up there, though, isn't he? I'm going to put him in great transfer there. Yeah, I like him. I think those Brighton midfielders are going to do really well this game week, so I think March is going to be a great transfer. His numbers are better than any of the other Brighton midfielders at the moment, and although he was the kind of the only one to blank in a way in game week 26, he still played reasonably well, took a lot of penalty area touches, created a little bit. But if we look over several game weeks, because remember, we try not to judge too much based on one game week, March has been the standout attacker for Brighton recently. Even if he hasn't always got the returns, he has been that standout guy, and he has got a couple of big holes in him as well. So still really like March, slightly cheaper than his teammates as well. Think he's a fantastic pick, and we're going to put the other Brighton midfielders alongside him very, very shortly. Now, as for these Liverpool forwards who are about to come in, this is a tricky one. So Darwin Núñez, first of all, it's so tricky because he has been a player who is blanked so consistently against all kinds of easy fixtures, and then suddenly plays Manchester United, a really difficult fixture, and suddenly he's really clinical again. We as FPL managers, we really need to try our best, and we try our best not to judge too much based on one fixture, off one result. So, in a way, we've got to say, hey, that was a freak result for Darwin Nunez against Manchester United, and it's not going to happen every game. Of course it's not going to happen every game, but this is a fixture against Bournemouth, so maybe he can do really well there. I think it's too difficult to call. In general, I think there are better options in the forward slot for Liverpool, so I'm going to put Darwin. I think there's potential for him to repay you in the short term, and then you sell him in 28 because he doesn't have a fixture. I think he's going to be a player who causes you more problems than he solves in general. So I'm going to put him in optional, but he's going to be one of those players who, go for at your own risk, at your own peril. It has huge potential to go wrong. I would not be too confident about it. And if it goes right, fantastic, but you are still probably going to have to sell him the following game week. Guys, you do you on that one. I think a lot of people will probably actually be looking to sell Darwin this week for the likes of Tony if they own him already, to be fair. So, yeah, not super keen, but there is potential. There is potential there. Cody Gakpo, I think, is worse. Slight rotation risk there with the likes of Firmino and Jota coming back into the side. So I think he's going to be lower than Darwin. But I see why people would go for him because he's probably a little bit easier to squeeze in. But in terms of midfielders right now, I think there's got to be so much focus on Arsenal, maybe in the short term, Brighton midfielders as well. Where's the place for Gakpo? And if we overdo it on these Liverpool players, we're going to really, really be in big trouble in game week 28, where Liverpool do blank. So again, I feel like he has to join his other teammates down here somewhere, maybe even drop into the avoid section, because I feel like we will get to Salah in a second, but if you're going to go for one Liverpool player, and I'm not really sure there's going to be opportunity to go for multiple Liverpool players. If you've already got these players, by the way, you definitely keep them, but in terms of bringing them in, you're going to cause yourself a lot of problems, I think, maybe. Unless you're free hitting in Game Week 28, which solves so much, doesn't it? Anyway, Mac Allister up next. I'm going to put him up alongside March. I'm going to try and keep these midfielders close together, but March is still a player I prefer to Mac Allister. I do really like Mac Allister. I think he's been doing pretty well in that central attacking midfield position, obviously on penalties, which we saw, but he didn't get... Let's kind of pull it in a little bit. I know I've been hyping up Mac Allister a little bit, but I don't want to overdo this or oversell him too much. We have to remember that the returns he got in Game Week 26 were not from open play. So we are depending maybe a little bit on those set pieces, given enough fixtures, which he will be given enough fixtures. We probably are going to see some returns from that, but is he as good from open play as March? March, by the way, who's also on corners as well. Probably not, but that's not to say Mac Allister still can't chip in with some good returns. So I still think he's a very good pick, but I don't think he quite beats March. Still slightly prefer March over a slightly larger data period, I guess. Now, next up is Salah. This is a really interesting one. I feel like I was saying earlier, if you're going to go for too many Liverpool players right now, if you continue to buy more and more and more, you're going to find yourself in trouble. If you already have Liverpool players, keep them, sell them next week. Absolutely fine. No problem. Get that Bournemouth fixture. However, if you haven't got any Liverpool players at all, or you are looking to buy one Liverpool player, it would have to be Salah, wouldn't it? Because you've got that nailed-on player. You're not going to get any rotation there from him. You've got a really nice fixture from a player with a really high upside who is known for regularly scoring those mega hauls. That's what you get from Salah. So you do get a lot from him. And, it doesn't take a genius to work out if you're only allowed one Liverpool player against Bournemouth, it's probably going to be Salah, right? So in that case, I think we've got to put Salah as a great transfer. I'm not sure I'm happy to put him alongside these double game week boys, because the double game week boys are going to be predicted to score more than the single game week boys, pretty much no matter what the case. The likes of Salah and Kane can compete with them, but in general, we're probably going to see decent returns for players with double game weeks in similar positions. So yeah, Salah, Kane. I think Salah slightly better captain option than Kane right now, given the form that he's in, which is very, very good indeed. So yeah, a great transfer, not a must-buy. In terms of going for multiple Liverpool players, I think that's where things get a little bit risky. But if you can just go for one, just go for Salah. If you can manage to get Salah into your team using just one transfer, for example, maybe you've still got a De Bruyne in your team, maybe you've got a Fernandes in your team or something like that, and you can buy Salah in and captain him for this week, I don't think think that's such a bad thing. I really don't. But again, you might have to sell him for following game weeks. You might be able to keep him on your bench. That's going to be kind of up to you, isn't it? Ben Mee, let's put him slightly lower. I still think he's a good transfer, but I'd rather go for Henry. I'd rather go for Pinnock. I've spoken about this a lot before. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more on the stream tonight as well, about why I prefer Henry and Pinnock to Ben Mee. But basically, it boils down to Ben Mee's price is much higher and his numbers are actually slightly worse. So slightly worse numbers, slightly worse for bonus points in general as well. His baseline bonus is slightly lower. And yeah, the extra price means there's pretty much no benefit for going for me over the likes of Henry, Pinnock and Raya. So therefore, I still think he has his place. He's still going to do okay, but let's put him in a good transfer rather than that elite super pick, I guess. Let's put him somewhere like, I think here. Yeah, here's about right. All right, next up, Pervis Estupinian. Pervis. Where are we going to put you? Yeah, the only difficulty with Brighton players is their kind of blank in game week 28, which does put me off just a little bit. But if you can cover Pervis, I think there is good upside here compared to some of the other defenders. If you think he's going to keep clean sheets, if you think he's potential for an assist there, or get subbed off at 60 minutes like he always does to lock in that clean sheet for himself, then I guess he's going to be pretty good. So let's go. I'm not quite prepared to put him in the same level as some of these great transfers, but we're going to put him there. So there you are, Pervis Estupinian, good transfer, not quite in the great transfer category. Next up, Tony, must buy. Yeah, I'm putting him in there. I feel like looking through a lot of the numbers we've been seeing recently from Tony and looking at a lot of the prediction models, Tony is predicted to score the most points in game week 27. So he's the highest predicted points, which means he's going to be a really popular captain option with 2 fixtures in there over the next 3 game weeks. So this includes double game week now, single game week next week, doesn't blank, and a double game week in 29. Tony, once again, one of, if not the highest predicted points over a 3 game week period. So he really is a player who there's no reason not to buy unless you are super worried about him getting banned. Now, he is going to be facing a potential ban for football, but we are looking at April, mid to late April at the moment of when that's likely going to start, that ban. So over the next few game weeks where he has this really high upside, this is a period you want to have him for, even if it's just for 3 game weeks, a little punt for 3 game weeks. After that, he can be sold quite easily. There's lots of other options to sell him for. So I think as a punt for 3 game weeks, Tony is one of, if not the best player to go for. And that's why I'm happy to put him in the must-buy category. Really like this pick. Possibly going to be my captain for this game week. Let's see how he gets on in game week 26, because game week 26, he hasn't even played a fixture at time of recording. If he gets a yellow card in tonight's game as well, maybe that changes things a little bit, because that means 1 more yellow card will give him a suspension. But for now, as at time of recording, Tony, for me, is probably the #1 pick, probably the #1 player to pick up and buy if you haven't got him already. So I'm going to put him in the must-buy category. And finally, Kaoru Mitoma, I'm going to put him alongside his Brighton teammates, but I am going to back this. I'm still going to say this. I still think he is the 3rd best out of the 3 Brighton options. All 3 of them are fantastic, and they're so close to a coin toss, really. They really are. Like, if anyone says, oh, March and McAllister are far better than Mitoma, they're just wrong. And I'm not even trying to say that myself, but I'm going to back this with chest. If I had to pick 2 of these 3 midfielders, I would say March and McAllister would be my 2 favourites. Now, Mitoma, fair enough, he got a decent score in game week 26, really decent in fact, but he got his returns from 1 shot that he took all game. Over the last few game weeks, we've kind of seen Mitoma is only really taking about 1 shot per game. He'll be very lucky to get 2 shots in a game, kind of isolated out wide. He got his assist from winning a penalty as well, which is not something that's going to happen every week either. So I'm not trying to downplay him too much, because he is still a fantastic option and he definitely competes with March and McAllister. But we have seen Mitoma's numbers slowly start to dwindle a little bit. March's numbers looking good, McAllister's numbers looking good. These 2 players are kind of improving while Mitoma is kind of slightly on the downturn if you look at a kind of 5 game week period. So in general, all very good players to go for. I love these Brighton midfielders, and if you disagree with me, then that is absolutely fine, and you really should back yourself, because look, these 3 players are so close anyway. If you've got a good feeling about one of them, you should absolutely go for the one that you have a good feeling about. But for me, this is my order. If you ask me which one am I most likely to captain, yeah, it would probably be March or McAllister before it would be Mitoma. So yeah, we're we're going to firm it and put the tier list like that. So just one must buy for this game week. We've got a load of great options. We've got a load of good options there for you. Some players that are slight risk, maybe could cause damage to your team long term. Again, gonna depend a little bit on when you're using your chips and this, that, and the other as well. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. And a lot of players who I do just think are players I wouldn't want to be going for right now. So yeah, those are your avoids there as well. So yeah, what do you think about this tier list, guys? Do you reckon I've got it roughly right, roughly wrong? It'd be really interesting to hear some of your thoughts there. And that is the end of today's video. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Massively appreciated. Do subscribe if you're new around here as well. We're going to be streaming after the Brentford match tonight and see where everything is. I know there's so much to talk about, so maybe that stream will be good. I guess we'll find out if we have a little bit of reflection in that stream over Game Week 26. Madness. But yeah, aside from that, hopefully see a few of you guys there. Plenty more videos this week, of course, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.